On May 2, 2025, the state of Illinois bid farewell to one of its most controversial political figures. George Ryan, former governor, Republican stalwart, death penalty reformer, and convicted felon, died at the age of 91. His life journey spanned the vast spectrum of public service and personal downfall, idealism and scandal. His story is not merely one of a politician's rise and fall, but rather a reflection of American politics itself, the intersections of policy, morality, ambition, and failure. Ryan is remembered as the man who saved hundreds of lives by halting executions in Illinois, but also as the man whose corrupt administration enabled negligence that cost innocent lives. To understand George Ryan is to explore the often contradictory nature of leadership, the thin line between conviction and compromise, and the price of public trust. George Homer Ryan was born on February 24, 1934, in Maquoketa, Iowa. He was one of 11 children born into a working-class family. When he was just a boy, his family moved to Kankakee, Illinois, a community that would become the backdrop for most of his life and political career. Raised in a tight-knit family with conservative values, Ryan learned the principles of hard work and responsibility early on. After graduating from Kankakee High School, he attended Ferris State College in Michigan, where he earned a degree in pharmacy. Upon returning home, he joined his father in running the family-owned pharmacy. But even behind the counter, Ryan had an eye on politics. He was fascinated by public service and the machinery of government. In 1956, at the age of 22, he married Laura Lynn Lowe, his high school sweetheart and lifelong partner. They would go on to have 6 children and share more than 5 decades together. Ryan's political career officially began in 1966 when he was elected to the Kankakee County Board. From there, he ascended to the Illinois House of Representatives in 1972. He served 5 terms, and his colleagues quickly noticed his political instincts and backroom savvy. In 1981, he became House Minority Leader, cementing his status as a power broker in the Illinois GOP. His rise continued in 1983 when he was elected Lieutenant Governor under Governor James Thompson. This statewide role gave Ryan valuable exposure and helped him build a base of support across Illinois. He focused on rural development and senior citizens' issues, laying the groundwork for a reputation as a pragmatic, people-first politician. Then, in 1990, he was elected Illinois Secretary of State, one of the most powerful political offices in the state, controlling driver services, business registration, and a vast patronage network. But this office would later become the epicenter of a scandal that would define his legacy. As Secretary of State from 1991 to 1999, Ryan managed one of the largest bureaucracies in Illinois. The office employed thousands, processed millions of driver's licenses and vehicle registrations, and handled significant revenue. But Ryan's administration quickly developed a reputation for patronage and questionable ethics. Whistleblowers and investigative journalists raised concerns about pay-to-play politics. It was alleged that campaign contributions were being solicited from employees and vendors in return for jobs and contracts. The darkest chapter came in 1994, when a trucking license issued through Ryan's office was linked to a horrific crash in Wisconsin. A truck driver, who had received his commercial license through a bribe, slammed into a family minivan. The resulting inferno killed 6 children from the Willis family, a tragedy that would haunt Ryan's career and become a catalyst for federal investigations. Operation Safe Road, a multi-year FBI probe, would eventually expose a sprawling web of bribery, cover-ups, document shredding, and systemic corruption that tainted the Secretary of State's office for years. Despite the growing storm clouds, Ryan successfully ran for governor in 1998, narrowly defeating Democrat Glenn Poshard. He campaigned as a moderate Republican, vowing to clean up government, improve infrastructure, and invest in education. Once in office, Ryan continued his pragmatic, bipartisan approach. But it was a series of high-profile exonerations of death row inmates that changed the trajectory of his governorship and his legacy. DNA testing and investigative journalism were exposing deep flaws in Illinois' capital punishment system. Inmate after inmate was being found innocent, some just days or hours before scheduled executions. In a stunning move, Ryan declared a moratorium on the death penalty in January 2000, the first such action by a U.S. governor. He called the system broken and called for a comprehensive review. The Illinois Death Penalty Commission was formed to study wrongful convictions, systemic bias, and prosecutorial misconduct. In 2003, just days before leaving office, Ryan again stunned the nation. In a speech at Northwestern University, he announced the blanket commutation of all 167 death row inmates to life sentences. He also pardoned 4 men who had been wrongfully convicted and tortured into confessions. Human rights organizations, anti-death penalty activists, and religious leaders hailed Ryan as a moral hero. His actions spurred reforms across the country and reignited debates about capital punishment. But critics accused him of overreach, arguing that he circumvented the courts and denied justice to victims' families. Even as Ryan was being praised globally for his moral leadership, the walls were closing in. The federal investigation into the Secretary of State's office had yielded dozens of indictments. Prosecutors began drawing a clear line from the low-level bribery schemes directly to Ryan's top aides, and ultimately, to Ryan himself. In December 2003, just months after leaving office, George Ryan was indicted on 22 counts of corruption, including racketeering, tax fraud, and lying to federal agents. The trial began in 2005 and captivated the public. Over the course of the trial, jurors heard testimony about ghost payrolling, insider deals, and campaign contributions in exchange for state contracts. Ryan was painted as the head of a corrupt political machine. In April 2006, he was convicted on 18 counts. The judge handed down a 6.5-year prison sentence. Ryan's fall from grace was complete. Once the highest-ranking official in the state, he became Illinois' 3rd governor in a row to be convicted of federal crimes. A grim trend that would later include Rod Blagojevich. Ryan reported to the federal prison in Oxford, Wisconsin, in November 2007. He was 73 years old. During his sentence, he reportedly spent time reading, reflecting, and corresponding with his family and supporters. Tragedy struck again in 2011 when his wife, Laura Lynn, died of lung cancer. Ryan was briefly released to be at her bedside before she passed. In 2013, after serving 5 years, he was released from prison under federal supervision. He quietly returned to Kankakee, avoiding public life and declining most media interviews. In the years that followed, Ryan maintained his innocence but rarely spoke about politics. His health declined steadily in the early 2020s. By 2025, he had been moved into hospice care, where he died peacefully on May 2nd, surrounded by family. The life of George Ryan remains a paradox. He was a compassionate reformer and a corrupt politician, a champion of justice who failed to uphold it within his own administration. A man who commuted the sentences of death row inmates while presiding over a political culture that buried accountability. Ryan's moratorium on the death penalty and mass commutations remain among the most consequential actions taken by any U.S. governor in modern history. They continue to influence public policy and debates around criminal justice. Yet his legacy will forever be stained by the scandal that led to 6 children's deaths, a federal conviction, and a prison sentence. George Ryan's story is not just a biography, it's a cautionary tale. A reminder that leadership, without integrity, risks unraveling all good intentions. And that in politics, as in life, morality must be more than a moment, it must be a practice.